Yo, what is going on? Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown. Thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of the show. I am your host, Johnny Soap, and of course, alongside me, as always, from FlamesNation.ca, it is Robert Munich. How we doing, Robert?
Doing great, and I'm pumped for this episode. We're doing our top 10 Flames prospects, so I'm hoping that our lists kind of differ a little bit. We can have some good debates here, but yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this one.
I'm going to guarantee our list will differ because I'm going to throw a wrench in my top four that you're not going to see coming, and it might be a cop-out, but we'll get into that later in the episode. It's going to be awesome. How was the weekend there, Robert? It was pretty void of sport. No more World Cup. There's no hockey yet, just some baseball. How was the weekend in Calgary for you?
Loved the Stampeders game on Friday. That was super entertaining. Vernon Adams is just lighting up the CFL, so that was pretty fun to watch, and had some good family time. And, you know, in Calgary here, it's just boiling hot. Like, we're talking like 30 degrees plus, and it's just been awful. And all I want is October to come around because I'm not a big summer guy.
It where I'm at, it hit 38 degrees yesterday. So I spent some time indoors, we'll say, yesterday. It was a good weekend to just be in the air conditioner and just try to enjoy time with the family. The kids were a little stir crazy because they didn't want to go outside because it was too hot, but being inside kind of sucked too. So you're playing those fun games with children and trying to get things done today. They started swim lessons this week, outdoor pool, so they're enjoying that portion of their summer. To be a kid with no school during the summer again, eh, Robert?
Must be nice.
Yeah, it must be nice. Let's dive into this top 10 prospect list. We're going to count it down. We got some honorable mentions. For the sake of our conversation, just let the listeners know, if you've played over 30 NHL games, we are disqualifying you from this list. So that means the trio of Zane Parekh, Matt Vagridin, and Hunter Brzustevich do not qualify for our list. Reason for that is Robert and I both seemingly agree these are pretty much established NHLers. These are guys, especially Gridden and Parekh, that are going to play a lot of minutes for the Flames this year coming up. There are guys that have kind of established their roles on the roster. They're kind of they're kind of important players too, Robert? Like, especially with Parekh on the power play one, Matt Vagridin getting top 6 minutes, top line minutes. These guys are kind of important players for the Flames. Just want to make sure that caveats out there that those three players, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, we think are pretty much NHLers at this point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And even Brzustevich, I even think, proved that he was pretty much an NHL player last year. And I guess like the whole point of like the prospect list for me is that they're just young players that haven't established themselves as NHL players yet. I think that's kind of like the main criteria that we're going for here.
Yeah, so anyone who's listening to this show and gets to the end and then starts complaining we have Gridden on this list, just rest assured we recognize Parekh, Gridden, and Brzustevich have already taken the next step, young NHL players. Let's start at the bottom of the list, Robert. We'll go back and forth here. Let's start with our honorable mentions. We have a ton of prospects in the Flames pool. There's been a ton of draft picks over the last 3-4 drafts here for the Flames. So there's a lot of guys to choose here from. So there's bound to be a guy or two that we just don't have on our list. Any honorable mentions for you from your top 10?
Yeah, I mean, a couple stand out to me. First would be Andrew Basha, who, you know, he's had a really interesting last couple of years here in the sense that he's barely been healthy as a prospect. And I'm really curious to see what he can look like with a full bill of health. And, you know, I was super encouraged by his second half of the season last year at the Medicine Hat Tigers. You know, him and the Rucks made one of the most dangerous lines in the entire CHL. And Basha was well over a point per game. And it looked like he was back to being the confident, skilled player that we all know he can be. He had a rough go of it in the AHL, which is totally fine for a 19/20-year-old. That's an extremely difficult league to make your mark on at that age, especially, you know, someone like Basha, who's not the biggest and most physical player. So he's one guy that was just on the outside looking in. I have him as my number 11 prospect in the system. And the other guy that I had just barely on the outside was Chase Harrington. And I think he's a super intriguing guy because everything you hear about him is that he is a rat and he is incredibly difficult to play against. He's physical. He's an asshole on the ice. And he has a little bit of skill on top of that too. And I think that's a really intriguing player for a Flames organization that's kind of lacking that sort of element to their group. And if Harrington can come in and bring that element along with being a 30 to 35 point third line winger or something like that, like I think that could be really valuable. But I had him as number 12 on my list. But yeah, just those two guys were 11 and 12, and they were very close to getting to kind of like that 9 or 10 spot, but I just had a couple guys ahead of them. But yeah, those were my kind of honorable mentions. And even a guy like Tyson Gross was kind of in the mix too. The only reason I had him a little bit lower is just because I don't know if the ceiling's there. I feel like at the NHL level, he'll probably, truly max out as like a third line center. Realistically, he's probably more of a fourth line guy. So just because the ceiling's not that high, I didn't really have him considered for the top 10. But yeah, I guess those would be my kind of honorable mentions here.
I like those. I like that one, especially the Basho one. I had him just outside my top 10 as well. And then one other name that I will mention because I know the Flames are high when they targeted this player in the trade, but Abram Weeb also just outside my top 10. I think there is something there for the Flames in a depth defenseman type of role, and I'm excited to see what he brings, which will probably be to the Wranglers this season. And I think there is something there in a 6-7 role for Abram Reeb if he can develop into those things. And I know the Flames are really high on him. I love what you mentioned there about Chase Harrington. He is a bit of an a-hole when it comes to playing the game of hockey. And if you watch the Western Hockey League, you're gonna love watching him play for Spokane. He's going back to play for the Chiefs here. Let's start this countdown off at number 10. I'll go first here because I got two guys. I'm going to cheat here because there's two guys that I think that are kind of 10A and 10B in this conversation, and they're both goaltenders for me, Robert. I've got Kirill Zarubin and Tobias Triegel both at the same spot here on this list. One of these two guys is going to blossom, and I can't quite put my finger on who it is, and so I'm cheating. Yes, I'm going to cheat. That's fine because I made the list, and this is my show, and I'm cheating here because I think that one of these two goaltenders, if not both of them, could blossom into be backup level or higher at the National Hockey League level. You listen to Jordan Sigalet talk about these guys and how much that he loved the game that Kirill Zarubin brings, and that he wanted to bring him over from Russia a year earlier. He's very high on what he can bring, and I think this guy's going to surprise a lot of people in the Flame circles, in hockey circles, and be a better goaltender than maybe he might be getting credit for here. And then obviously when you have a second-round pick in this past draft, everyone's going to be high on that goaltender. He should have a really good year in the NCAA. And so I have a dual goaltenders in my 10 spot, Robert. And go ahead and give me grief for picking two guys at one spot, but I don't care.
Hey, like you said, it's your show. You're the CEO of the Red Mile Rundown. You're power tripping a bit, but I'm okay with it. Mine's similar.
No, go ahead.
I got number 10. Yeah, I got Tobias Triegel as well. The 6'4" Czech goaltender that the Flames traded up to get in the second round. Mm-hmm. First goalie taken off the board in this most recent draft here. And yeah, he's a super athletic, massive goalie. I was at the Flames rookie development camp. I was standing at ice level, basically directly across from him on the goal line, watching him in the one end. And man, is he good. You can just tell he's super athletic. He's super steady. Barely any shots went in on him. Like, I was really, really impressed. And just, if the Flames identify somebody in the draft as the best goalie, I think Jordan Sigalet and that whole goaltending department, they deserve the benefit of the doubt when it comes to their ability to find goalies. Because, since that whole goaltending department was hired in Calgary, some of the guys they found have been super impressive, whether it's Dustin Wolf in the 7th round, Devin Cooley off kind of the scrap heap of free agency. Mm-hmm. I don't think there was a ton of interest in him. They get Dan Vladar for a 3rd rounder, and even, getting a guy like David Riddick out of obscurity in the Czech Republic. This goaltending group, they know what they're doing. So to identify Triegel as the number 1 goalie in a draft where I think it was 25 or 30 goalies went, it was almost a record.
So many. Yeah.
So many, it's crazy. So for the Flames to get the best goalie out of that draft class, I think says a lot. And for Sigalet and company to identify him and want to trade up for him, I also think says a lot. So yeah, I think the future's bright in the Flames crease, whether it's, Dustin Wolf, who signed for the next 7 years, Devin Cooley. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. He might pull a Dan Vladar, but if he decides to stay, that would be great. They got the 3 Russian kids and Yegorov, Sergeyev, and the other guy you just mentioned, drawing a blank here, Zarubin. And so yeah, like the goaltending department, the goaltending stacked in the Flames organization. So yeah, that's super exciting. And yeah, I got Trey Ball as number 10 on my list.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think that goaltender, I think when Jordan Siglet speaks about goaltending, I think we've learned that he knows what he's talking about with the way that he's developed these guys. He's a big reason they took Wolf in the 7th round a couple years ago, and they drafted him as well. This guy knows goaltenders. He knows how to find goaltenders. He knows how to find goaltenders that can be value picked for where they actually are. So when he actually targets the guy and the Flames move up to get him, you can't help but be in love with the guy as well, and hope that he can live up to the standards that Jordan Siglet has stated. Where are you headed here with number 9 on your list, Robert?
So I'm going to go with Theo Stocksilius out of Djurgården, 6'3", just shy 200 pounds. Listed as a center, and at the World Junior Summer Showcase, he was listed as Sweden's first-line center in their opening game yesterday. I remember hearing on Flames Talk that Pat Steinberg, I think he'd mentioned that he'd heard that the Flames view Stocksilius more as a winger, as a pro, rather than a center. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But for him, I really like the mix of his speed, his size, his skill. Like I said, he's 6'3", he's almost 200 pounds at the age of 20. And I think the thing that he had going against him is that in his draft year, we've talked about this before, but he was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and he was out for quite a long time dealing with that. And thankfully he's got over that illness, which is fantastic. And then even last year he got injured in the Swedish Junior League as well. So he's been dealing with injuries and illness, but kind of similar to Basha. Like, I think once he gets back to 100% health, I really believe that there's a pretty high ceiling for this player. I think there's the potential for him to be a top 3 line player. And kind of what's exciting about this upcoming season is that he's going to have a chance to play against men for a full season for the first time in his career in Djurgårdens in the SHL. So it's going to be fun to see how he progresses out there. But yeah, I got him as my number 9 prospect.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm high on him as well. He's on my list, just not at number 9. My number 9 is Idar Suniev. I think this is a guy who might have fallen down, like he has on my list, fallen down some prospect lists for the Flames, but he still should be a guy that we think of when we talk about Flame prospects. He's only at the age of 21, and he's showing flashes at the American Hockey League level of being a really good, solid NHL or AHL player, and I think that can move to the next level if he continues to work hard at his craft and be the type of player the Flames envisioned he could be. Remember, they brought him over. He was part of a trade, and they dropped him in the 3rd round, and 3rd rounders have a tough time becoming NHLers. But I think this guy can be one of those that breaks the mold a little bit. I don't think it's going to be like his top line forward at the National Hockey level, but this guy has a chance to be a solid depth scorer for an NHL franchise. And I think he's still much in the plans of Craig Conroy and the Calgary Flames moving forward here. So at my number 9 spot, I have Suniev. As for your guy, Theo Stocksilius, I have him at 8. So not too far away from what you have. And for all the reasons that you mentioned for Theo Stocksilius, this guy's a dog on a bone. This guy plays hard. He plays a good game. I do question if he's a winger as well, rather than a center at the National Hockey League level or higher levels. And this is a guy that wins. He has 2 championships in the last 2 years over in Sweden, playing at the junior level over there. So this guy is a winner. This guy knows how to play hard. He's got a good frame on him. So I have him at my number 8 spot. I'm really high on Theo as well.
And then, yeah, at my 8, I have Suniev. So ours are just
really
switched
close
by 1 spot there. And the thing I really like about Suniev is that I think he has that dynamic element to his game that not a ton of players have.
Yep.
And like you can definitely see it in the American Hockey League. And this is a guy who scores goals. Like the hardest thing to do in professional hockey is to put the puck in the back of the net. And Suniev is the kind of guy that has the ability to do that. And I love the shot. I think the shot has the potential to be pretty lethal. And, even like in his cup of coffee he got at the end of last season, I thought he looked really good at times. I think there's serious potential for him to be a top 9 forward for this organization. And I think he just needs to work on his skating a little bit. It's a little clunky, but other than that, between the shot, between the playmaking and in that kind of offensive instinct, I think Suniev has the ability to be a really good, dynamic, potential 20-goal winger in the NHL. So yeah, he's my number 8.
Yeah, I think if you know that skating for sure, he's definitely on line here for a bump up in his level of play. Like I think the both of these guys, Theo and Suniev, are really close to one another in their development, and they're both in for big years. I think in the American Hockey League level, I like it. I like it a lot. Up to number 7 on our list. I think this is where it's going to start getting interesting for both of us here, where we're going to start moving around these prospects a little bit different on each person's list. Who do you got at number 7, Robert?
I got Henry Muse, the defenseman out of Michigan, as my
Nice.
number 7. And honestly, I mean, had he not got hurt last year, he might have got consideration to get into the top 5 on this list. I think that his offensive ceiling is very high. Like, you take a look at his OHL numbers, well over a point per game, power play specialist. Even at Michigan last year, he only played in 10 games, but he put up 9 points in those 10 games as a freshman, which I find with freshmen in the NCAA, it usually takes about a month or two for these kids to kind of get their feet under them, get used to the pace and playing against older players that they're not used to. But it seemed like Muse kind of just picked it up like right away, which I thought was really, really impressive. And yeah, he was really starting to hit his stride. He was on a strong trajectory until he got that knee injury, which sucks. But I still think that there's a nice high ceiling for this player. The one issue I have with him in the Flames organization right now is that he is a right shot. He has Parekh, he has Nemec, and he has Brstevich all ahead of him on the depth chart right now, and they're all kind of similar players in the sense that they lean more offensive than defensive. So it's definitely a crowded blue line on the right side there. But if Muse can have another good year at Michigan here, maybe turn pro at the end of the year or head back for another season, I still think there's potential for him to be an NHL player one day. So, yeah, I got Henry Muse, number 7.
I like that pick because I also have Muse at 7. Surprisingly, I thought we'd have a little bit different list here, but I'd like Henry Muse for everything that you just mentioned there. I think there is a path for him to be an NHLer and to do a similar role to what a Zane Parekh does or a Nemec does in the National Hockey League level. I do wonder how he rebounds from the injury, and it's a big year for him into college because that team that he is on added a bunch of skill as well, and that guys are going to take away some of his playing time, so he's going to have a little bit of adversity in college this season coming up for him. But if he can battle through that and show what he's made of, I think that he's going to skyrocket on a lot of other people's prospect lists. So Henry Muse, that's a good pick at 7 there, Robert. It's like we read one another's list there.
Well, in the one you had mentioned that Michigan added a bunch of talent, and one of those players they added was Landon DuPont. So you would imagine that power play one time is going to go to DuPont instead of Muse, which kind of sucks for his development. But I still believe in the player. I still think the vision and the skating and the playmaking is all NHL potential. It's just is he going to be able to realize it? Can he stay healthy? Can he develop? When a guy like Landon DuPont's going to be ahead of him, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I just wonder how his usage differs as well. There is a second power play unit still to run in Michigan. There are a lot of 5-on-5, and if DuPont can't pick it up as fast as Muse does, then the door is open for him to take back some of those minutes as well. So he's in for a big season. He's got to show it and show it quickly here. I like that one a lot. Good call there. Number 6 on my list. I've got a guy that people are also calling maybe a winger, not a center, and how he develops. He also is coming off a big injury as well last year. I have Colin Potter at my 6th spot. I'm not sure what he is coming off this injury. I'm not sure what he projects as for you long term. I think he might be more of a winger than a center for me, but this is a guy who is high on a lot of people's lists. This is a guy that Team USA looks at for their tournaments at the World Junior level. This is a guy who the Flames are really high on. They targeted him at the end of the first round when he was drafted. This is a guy that the Flames really want to see something out of. So Colin Potter with another, much like Muse coming off a serious injury, he's got a lot to prove, but he's moving back to Michigan State. He's going to get a big opportunity to play for them, and he's going to get a lot of minutes, in my opinion, and he has a chance there to be a top 6 guy and a guy that they count on in that program to be a difference maker for them. So in my spot, number 6, I have Colin Potter. What about you, Robert?
Yeah, number 6, I got something a little different. I'll go Jack Hextall.
Like it?
At number 6, the most recent 30th overall pick in last year's draft for the Flames, a right shot center with some size and some skill. It seems like a really smart player, the type of guy who, if he hits his ceiling in the NHL, I think could be a Michael Backlund type of player, that third line winger or a third line center that, can play against opponents' top lines, can win draws, can put up anywhere between 30 to 40 points a year. I mean, those types of players are extremely valuable. And I do think Hextall has the potential to be there. The reason I would put him down at 6 and maybe not a little bit higher is just the idea that I don't know if Hextall's ceiling is all that high in the NHL. I mean, this is a player in his draft year who was under a point per game in the USHL, and that type of production at that age in that league doesn't necessarily lead to a ton of offensive success in the NHL. But I do think that there's potential there for him to be, a really solid player for this team in the future. So I'll put Hextall at number 6 on my list.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I would imagine knowing what a big Hextall guy you are, I'm assuming he's number 1 on your list this year.
He's close. He's in my 5 hole for a lot of things you just mentioned, really. And I put him at 5 ahead of Potter at 6 because I think he is a center at the next level where I'm not sure Potter is. And for me, these two guys project very similar. These are guys that could be middle 6 guys at the NHL level, can play different sort of roles. I think Hextall is going to be more of the two-way type of player that can do a lot of the things that Michael Backlund does, maybe not to Michael Backlund's level, and can be a guy that can be kind of on that third line where I think Potter might be able to get second line winger type of minutes. But for me, these two guys are really neck and neck for their development and how they take the next step. Oddly enough, they're going to be teammates as well coming up this season, so maybe they play together on a line coming up down the line for Michigan State. And I really just like what Hextall brings to the table. And I know people are going to look at his points like you did there, Robert, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's more than a point producer for me, though. He is a guy that you count on to win draws. He's a guy that plays a nice full two-way game. And if he can develop this Sean Couturier-esque type playing style at the next level, I think he's got a long NHL future ahead of him. So I have Jack Hextall in my 5 spot as the Flames' 5th best prospect. What about you in your 5 hole?
Number 5, I got Sam Honzek. I think Sam took some major strides last year in the limited amount of games he played. I think he played around in 18 games or so last season, and I thought it got off to a bit of a rough start. It looked like he was a little bit out of his element, but I just thought he kept getting better and better and better. And then right around the time he got hurt there, right around the time when him and Michael Backlund collided and ended Sam Honzek's season, I thought he was one of those players who was about to break out. And by breakout, I mean, I think he could have been around a 30 to 40 point guy, play at that kind of pace in his final 3 quarters of his NHL season. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But, when I think of Sam Honzek, I see a guy like Blake Coleman. I see the younger version of Blake Coleman. And if Honzek can turn into that type of player, I think that would be a massive win for the Flames. Because I see a big guy, like a really good frame on him, really good skater, like one of the best skaters on the Flames right now, a smart player, a guy that can play good defense. And, the other part of his game I really started to like was I thought he started to get a little bit more physical, and I thought he became a better forechecker for the Flames as time was going on last year. And then, he does show flashes of brilliance on the offensive side of things. I mean, we've seen him score some nice goals as a member of the Flames, both in the regular season and in the preseason too. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago when he had that one goal where he danced around Vince Dunn and made a great move at the front of the net to score a nice goal. So I see a Blake Coleman type of player there. And if I'm Ryan Huska and I'm the Flames, I am stapling Honzek to Michael Backlund all season next year and saying, let Michael Backlund take Sam under his wing, show him how to be a great 200-foot player, show him how to be a Blake Coleman style guy. And if he can stay healthy and be consistent, I really believe that Honzek has a really nice 10 to 15 year NHL career ahead of him where he's going to be a really solid 200-foot player and could probably make a lot of money. So yeah, I got Honzek at number 5.
This is how I know our lists are going to be different because I didn't put Honzek on my list at all. And the reason I did
how
that,
could you?
hear me out here. Okay. And this is the reason I didn't do it. He played 23 NHL games in his career, so he's close to the 30-game mark that we have our cutoff on. But if it wasn't for that injury, everything that suggests that Honzek did last year would have said he would have been on Michael Backlund's wing pretty much the whole year. And he would have been a player that continually developed on that line. So for me, I left him off the list because I think he already is an NHLer. I think he fits into the young hockey players category that we put Perek and them in. He's not as high profile as those guys, obviously, because of the love that they're getting. But I think if it wasn't for that injury, you would have saw Sam Honzek play alongside Coleman and Backlund for the majority of the season and continue to get better as his numbers got better and as he learned the hockey game. So for me, it's not to say that Honzek's not a high prospect for the Flames. He's just not for me on this list anymore. I think he's earned a little bit. And I know you got to do it in order to be taken off the list, but I think he's pretty much earned that for me. So if I left him off the list, and I'm putting him in that category of young NHL hockey players. And I know that'll upset some people because he hasn't really shown he can be healthy and a mainstay in the lineup. But if it wasn't for that injury, I honestly believe that he would have been a guy that played most of that season with Michael Backlund. And so for that reason, I left him off my list. And it's no disrespect to number 29.
Yeah, Sam Honzek, if you're listening to the podcast right now, I just want to apologize on behalf of the Red Mile Rundown for the disrespect John is showing you, not having you in the top 10. That is disgusting. I'm a huge fan of you, and I believe in you. Just want to throw that out there.
Is it disrespect, though, if I've already said he's graduated off the list?
So that's a fair point. Maybe you actually think of him higher than I do.
So, Sam Honzek, you're welcome for the praise on the Red Mile Rundown podcast. And if you're listening, you're welcome on any time. Just send me a little DM there, and we'll get you on the show.
So this will get some good motivation for Sam for heading into next season.
So either one of us is hitting on Sam Honzek and the other person loves him. I think that's how that's coming out here, Robert. Sam Honzek, though, is a good pick to be on the list if you put him on your top 10 list for the reasons that you mentioned there, Robert. But for me, he's better than this list at the moment. Number 4, into the top 4 we head here, and I think we got some similar names going in here, but I know we're going to have a bit of a difference because I've left Sam Honzek off my list altogether. Number 4 for me, Ethan Wittenbach, the freshman phenom who blossomed onto the scene. Anyone who says they saw the season from Ethan Wittenbach, I'm going to call you a liar. No one saw what he did coming. The Flames drafted him in the 5th round. This guy came out of nowhere and be able to have 59 points in 40 games, help lead the Bobcats to some success, and be a guy that plays well above his draft stock, his draft position, I think is a big nod to what Ethan can be at the NHL level or the next level. At 19 years old, he's a right shot, which the Flames really severely need. He's got a smaller frame at only 5'10", but this player is showing some flashes and, dare I say, kind of Johnny Gaudreau-esque projection for a guy like Ethan Wittenbach. And I'm excited to see what he does at Quinnipiac this season for the Bobcats. So for me, at number 4, Ethan Wittenbach.
I'm curious to know who's going to be in your top 3 here, because I think there's 2 locks, but I'm curious to know who that third is. But we'll get there.
You're about to find out at 3.
But yeah, I like that. At number 4 for me, I got Cullen Potter. I just think, had he not got hurt last year, I really believe that he would be in the conversation to be in the top 3 Flames prospects. I just think that he's got that dynamic speed to him. One of the best when he got drafted in 2025, a lot of the draft experts had said that he is literally the best skater out of that draft class. Mm-hmm. And I think the Flames desperately need to add that to their lineup. So I'm excited about Potter in that regard. I really like the offensive skill set. I like the hands. I think he just brings that dynamic element to the Flames prospect system that they're kind of lacking right now. There's not a ton of great skaters, basically in the organization as a whole. So I really like that. And he's going to go off to Michigan State. He's going to be playing at a much better program. He's been at Arizona State the last couple years. He's going to be playing with a lot of really good players, a lot of drafted players, and he's going to be playing for a good coach and a good system. So I'm really excited to see how he develops this year. And then he's going to get signed in come March or April, whenever Michigan State season comes to an end. He's going to get signed, and I don't know if he's going to end up playing in the NHL or the AHL, but really, really intrigued to see what he can bring. And I think when it comes to when it comes to like my rankings, a lot of it just comes down to what I think these players' ceilings are. And I think if Potter hits his ceiling, that he has the potential to be a dynamic top 6 forward and most likely on the wing. But I think like his offensive ceiling is a little bit higher than guys that I had behind him, like a Sam Honzik, like a Jack Hextall or Suniev, those types of players. I think he could be a little bit more in that regard. So that's why I have him at number 4.
I like it. And you kind of mentioned it there, but when you look at Potter long term, do you think of him as more of a center or think of him as more of a winger player?
Definitely a winger. I'd be pretty surprised if he was a center. You don't see a ton of guys his size playing center in the NHL unless you're, the elite of the elite. And, I won't close the door on that possibility, but I think he will end up being a winger. I just think he kind of profiles, on the wing rather than center.
Like it. I like it. I agree with that a lot. Before I get to my 3, Robert, I'll let you go first on this one. Where do you go for your top 3 at number 3 here?
So yeah, starting out the top 3, this was tough because I had it down to 2 guys for the 2 and 3 spot and really splitting hairs here. But for me at number 3, I'll go with Cole Reshny, the center out of North Dakota. I think, we saw it at the World Juniors. We saw it in the NCAA last year. For a guy his age and at his size, he had a really, really strong year last year. And the part of his game that I really like and I think is kind of underrated is just his vision and his playmaking. And I think that might be like the most underrated skill in professional hockey, because I really believe that the players that have the high-end vision, the high-end passing ability, those are the types of players that make their line mates better. And they set up their line mates and they put them in positions to have success offensively. And I think Reshny is that kind of player. Like, he's got great hands. He can win draws. He can play in the penalty kill. He can play some defense. Like, he's got a very well-rounded game. So I got Cole Reshny as my number 3. And I was trying to think of maybe an NHL comparison for him. And I was looking at, I could see him being a less productive Nicholas Backstrom, like not the biggest guy in the world, not like the best skater, but a really smart player, a great passer, a guy that can set his teammates up. Backstrom was anywhere from like a 65 to 80 point center. I could see Reshny being in that kind of 55 to 65 point range. So maybe just a slightly less productive kind of Nicholas Backstrom sort of player. But yeah, I got Reshny as my number 3.
Reshny reminds me of Mark Savard. That's who he reminds me of. That's
an interesting one.
That would be my comp. A guy who can play make, but also score some goals. We'll get to Cole Reshny on my list in a second here. My 3 here, this is where I'm going to kind of go off board a little bit. This is where I'm either going to get a lot of hate or some people are going to like it. The Flames really need to draft a center and really need to play into that role. And this coming up season, the Flames are going to be a bad team by all accounts, and they're going to project to be a bad team, therefore making their 2027 first round draft pick the most valuable pick in the franchise, and therefore turning that player into a top 3 automatic top prospect. So for me, I'm going to cop out here and I'm going to say the 2027 first round draft pick is your 3rd most important prospect already in this franchise. And people will laugh at it, people will scoff at it. My reasoning being is that player that the Flames draft in 2027 is going to automatically become one of their most important prospects. And if they draft themselves in Alexis Joseph or a Landon Dupont, whoever it might be, that player is going to automatically become a huge important piece to the Flames, to the development of this franchise and the rebuild. So if I'm not allowed to have the draft pick, this is where I would have put Sam Honzik if I put him on my list. But I went for the draft pick because I think how important this draft pick and this player is going to be for the long-term health of the Flames and of the franchise. So for me, the third most important prospect is the 2027 first round pick. What say you?
You're breaking rules left, right, and center here, hey?
Hey, it's our show. We can do what we want. And is it really a rule break? Because it's going to be a top prospect. Come on.
We put in a whole bunch of rules, whole bunch of qualifications. You start out by having 2 guys ranked at number 10. You say Sam Honzik's not eligible for this list, even though he's only played 23 games. You have a guy that doesn't even play for the Flames. We don't even know who this player is as your number 3 prospect in the system. You're all over the place today, John. I love it.
Yeah, it's what you do. This is how you create content and conversation. Is you go off board a little bit and hopefully people hate it or love it, and let them let you know their opinions.
Hey, you're making it interesting. 100%. I like it.
They don't want to be
You're
boring.
you're keeping
If
me
we
on my
had the
toes today. I don't know where you're going next.
if we had the exact same 10, you know how boring that would be? Like it's
Or it would
yeah.
just indicate that we're just brilliant hockey minds and we think similarly.
Hey, I think we are brilliant hockey minds. I'm just thinking a little bit outside the box today on the show.
I'm almost scared to see who you have as number one. Is it going to be the guy who's their 2032 first round pick or something like that?
Number one will be Yegor Yegorov, goaltender.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Just kidding. So my number two guy is going to be Kolresny. Going back to Kolresny in the conversation, you laid it out beautifully why he's a top 3 prospect in the Flames organization. He's arguably one of the most important guys moving forward for this franchise. People are heaping a lot of praise on what Cole brings. He should be in line for a huge upgrade in leadership and being counted on at North Dakota. They're going to heap a whole bunch of responsibility onto Kolresny. He had a really good season last year, and I think this guy can project to be a really good number 2 center in the National Hockey League. I like your comp of Nicholas Backstrom, that style of hockey player. I went with Mark Savard, a guy who makes a lot. And I just think that this guy is going to be very important for the Flames. He's going to be counted on for years to come, and hopefully they can get this guy to meet the expectations and meet what people project of this player, because I really like what Cole brings and his interviews. This guy's dialed in. This guy wants to be counted on. This guy wants the responsibility. This guy wants to be counted on to be a top prospect for the organization, and he's not shying away from it at all. He's going straight into it, and I love that from when you have a prospect going straight into the fire and they want to be part of the solution for the Flames. So I have Kolresny at number 2 on my list, and I think it's well earned by the centerman.
What do you know what? You could make an argument that if we were to rank this in terms of the player who is the most important prospect in the Flames system, or the player that the Flames are going to have to rely on to get out of this rebuild, you could make an argument that Reshney could be number 1 just because of the lack of centers. And, if he comes in and if he could be that kind of 60-point second line center, kind of two-way guy and make his teammates better, that's a massive building block for this Flames team. And then, like for your third ranked prospect there, whoever they pick in 2027, if that guy could end up being the first line center, then you got Reshney as a 2C, and then maybe a guy like Hextall or Soxilius as your 3C. All of a sudden now center is the strength 100%. Of your organization. I almost
did have Reshney at number 1 because of the center factor, and he is the highest prospect center the Flames have right now, and he's going to be an important player. So hopefully he can work out and be what the Flames want him to be, because he's a hugely important player for this rebuild.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned that the playmaking was the thing I'm kind of most excited about when it comes to him. And just to back that up a little bit, in his last year in the WHL, he had 66 assists in 62 games, so over an assist per game. And then as a freshman in the NCAA, who a younger guy making that transition, which is not easy, he had put up 29 assists in 36 games with North Dakota. So really, really impressive playmaking numbers there for Cole Reshney.
Yeah, and imagine him playing with a guy like Matt Biggerton down the line, where he can feed that guy some pucks and be
oh baby,
a good watch. Knowing what's left on the list here, I'm interested where you go at 2 and then at 1, Robert.
See, at number 2, like I said, I was splitting hairs between Cole Reshney and Ethan Wittenbach, and I got Ethan as my number 2. I mean, this is a guy, I know he wasn't playing in the best conference in the world. Like, he played in the ECAC, which is he's basically playing against all those upper echelon NCAA programs, like the Harvards and the Yales of the world, those types of programs. So maybe it wasn't the best competition, but he still led the NCAA in scoring as an 18/19-year-old. And this was a guy who was, planned to go back to the USHL last season, but the Flames convinced him to make the step up to the NCAA. And man, was that a good decision from him. I mean, we're talking almost a 1.5 per game for the one of the youngest players on the ice, night in, night out. 59 points in 40 games. Every time I watch him play, I see these special tendencies. Like he's the kind of player that he sees passing lanes that nobody else sees, and when he sees them, he executes on those passes. And you had thrown out the comparison of Johnny Gaudreau there, and I see Johnny Gaudreau tendencies when it comes to his vision and his playmaking. Like how many times with the Flames did we see Johnny Gaudreau just dance all over the ice and make a ridiculous pass to a teammate, whether it was Lindholm or Monahan, where they're wide open and they don't have to do anything except put the puck in the back of the net. I see those types of tendencies with Wittenbach, and we even saw it. If you go take a look at the World Junior Summer Showcase highlights from Team USA's first game on Sunday, just go and look at the passes Ethan Wittenbach was making. Like they were special. Like these are the types of passes that not a lot of guys can make. And once again, when I'm doing my rankings, I'm doing it based off of projections and who has the highest ceiling. I think Ethan Wittenbach, if he hits his ceiling, has the potential to be a point per game or better player in the NHL. And I know that's putting a lot of expectations on him, but and I know he's not the biggest guy in the world and all that, but man, can he make plays? And like you go back and you just kind of look at his story, and it's similar to Johnny Gaudreau in the sense that his dad owns a rink in I don't know if it's in New Jersey, I forget what state it's in, but Ethan Wittenbach just grew up playing hockey. That's all he did. In his spare time outside of school, all he did was just live at the rink and play hockey with his friends, play 3-on-3, and he just got to understand the game and got to get the kind of flow of the game down. Like not many players do. Like I just find with development now, it's a lot of systems and it's a lot of like going through cones and doing tight turns around cones and stick handling through cones. And I feel like the guys who, play on the outdoor rink and play shinny and just like, have that kind of free-flowing, non-structured kind of game, those are the guys that really know how to play hockey. Those are the guys that have the great vision, and I think Wittenbach's one of those guys. So, yeah, I see just a ton of hockey IQ in him. I see an elite vision, elite passing ability, and, I could see him being like a Johnny Gaudreau or like a Clayton Keller type of player, like a smaller winger, but is extremely productive. So, I got him as my number 2. It wasn't by much. Like I said, I'm splitting hairs between him and Reshny, but I just think there's something special about this kid, and I'm really excited to watch him in the World Juniors next year and to watch him at Quinnipiac again. And then he's going to sign too, and come March and April, those are going to be 2 really exciting months if you're a Flames fan. There's going to be a lot of young players signing out of the NCAA. So yeah, Wittenbach is my number 2. And also, I was referring to Ivy League schools. I could not think of Ivy League schools for some reason. That's what I was trying to refer to.
When I brought up Ethan went back and I did the Johnny Gaudreau comparison, I really hummed and hawed about actually saying it because people might take that to heart that this is Johnny Gaudreau 2.0. He's not as dynamic as Johnny is, but his ceiling is a guy that can play make and produce points and at a high level. And I love your point per game little snippet there, Robert. I am really high on what Ethan Wittenbach can be for the Flames down the road here. This guy is on a similar projectile that Gaudreau was with his development and how he came to be a hockey player and how he went to college and how the Flames are going to go get this guy out of college at the end of this year, especially if he has a repeat to last year's success. And they're going to put him right into the lineup. They're going to be, hey, let's go. The Flames need this style of player. They need guys that can produce offense, be dynamic, have this type of skill set. So I have no qualms about him being number 2 on anyone's prospect list for the Flames. I kind of feel like I did him a disservice only having him at number 4 on my list because of how high the praises we're giving to this kid. But he's definitely earned all of this praise, and the Flames found another gem a little bit later in rounds for them. That leaves number 1 for both. Yep. Go ahead.
I'll just point out quickly, and this, I don't know if it's a fair comparison because Johnny was even smaller than Ethan was in their freshman years, and Johnny was playing in Hockey East, a better conference. But in Johnny Gaudreau's freshman year, he put up 44 points in 44 games, which is outstanding. Ethan Wittenbach was 59 points in 40 games. Like, we're talking almost a half a point per game more for Wittenbach over Gaudreau in their freshman years, which I think is unbelievable. And the other thing to take consideration with Wittenbach too is that, playing on a team like Quinnipiac, I mean, he's got some good line mates and he's got some good teammates on that team, but he's not playing with like anybody special. Like there wasn't somebody who was leading that line or leading that team, and Wittenbach was kind of trailing behind and picking up kind of the, like the bunch of secondary assists and was kind of, relying on other players to get him to that type of point production. Whereas Johnny was playing with really good players at Boston College. So like, that's just another thing to keep in mind there. Like, Johnny that season had, a guy like Chris Kreider on his team. Like, Wittenbach had nothing even close to that. So like I said, I just think there's something kind of special about this player. And I'm really, really excited to see what the future holds for him.
I agree. And unless you're pulling something out of left field, Robert, that leaves number one, and that leaves the same guy at the top of both of our prospect pool lists. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Carson Carroll tops the top 10 prospect list for you.
I'm actually going Rory Cairns as my number one prospect.
Hey, he does play 30 NHL games. He's
eligible. It's definitely Carson Carroll for sure. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if you could put anybody else at number one other than Carl's. Like, I don't know if there's a legitimate argument to be made. I mean, yes, there's the whole Reshny center thing, or, if you think Wittenbach's going to be over a point per game, maybe you think he'll be more of an impact player. But I think as of right now, it's got to be Carson Carl's. I mean, the guy is just the full package when it comes to a hockey player. Like, he's got everything. He's got the offense. He put up 73 points in 58 games at Prince George last year. As a draft eligible defenseman, that's some pretty ridiculous production for a player that age. When you listen to Jim Playfair talk about him, he always says that, Carson's the type of kid who he'll never sacrifice his defense in order to get offense, which I think is something that should really excite Flames fans. And then, he's got the physicality on top of that. He's got the hockey IQ. He's got, a great mentality. He's got great character, comes from a great family and a hardworking background. He's got a really good attitude. Like, I don't think there's a single thing about Carson Carl's that you could point out and say, you know what, like, that's one thing that kind of concerns me about his game. I think he is just by far and away the most well-rounded prospect in this Flames group. Like, we talk about Wittenbach. Well, his kind of the one thing holding him back is size. And then for Reshny, it might be goal scoring and a little bit of size. But like with Carl's, he has everything going for him. And, a great thing too is that he's a left shot. And the Flames, they don't have the high-end guy, the high-end young defenseman on the left side that can be a legit top-pairing guy. So you add it all together, and I think Carl's is by far and away, the best and most important prospect in this Flames system. And yeah, he's clearly a number one for me. And he's another guy that's probably going to sign at the end of his college season this year, and we'll probably see him in the NHL at some point in March or April, which is going to be unbelievably exciting. So yeah, I think it's Carson Carl's is number one, and I don't really think there's any sort of debate around it, to be honest.
Yeah, when I started out my list, it took me 10 seconds to say no, Reshi's not number one, and I put Carson Carroll there because he is exactly what you want as a top prospect in your organization. He's a guy, he pretty much asks for this too, right? Begging to be picked by an NHL team in Canada, begging to be put into the fire, begging to be a guy that a team relies on to be the answer for their rebuild or their struggling franchise. He wanted this as a Western Canadian farm boy. He fits right in with the Flames, a guy who was Mr. Everything for the Prince George Cougars in the Western Hockey League. And he's going to be counted on in college to be that guy as well, to be a guy that's relied on for a lot of heavy minutes. And interested to see how that develops for him in the NCAA. And I think that was the right move for him to play against bigger, stronger opponents. And everything that he does and tries to accomplish on ice, it just shows how hardworking he is, the work ethic to be better, the hockey IQ to get through certain situations and to be a better hockey player each and every game that he plays. This guy's awesome. He's a good interview. He's a great kid. He's a phenomenal hockey player. He brings a bit of size to his game as well at 6'2". He brings that left shot that you mentioned there, Robert, that the Flames really, really need. And he's going to be paired up with a guy like a Zane Parekh or a Simon Nemec for years to come on that Flames blue line. And you look at that Flames blue line down the road here, it's a pretty impressive top four they can roll out pretty quick here. And if a guy like Carson Carroll, he was called captain material. He was called a leader. He was called all sorts of things by former coaches and by scouts around the National Hockey League. He was compared to certain NHLers. Like I saw a Sanderson comparison. I saw Miro Heiskanen comparison, and I'm not sure he's going to be that level offensively at the National Hockey League level. But the praise that he gets is because he earns it, and he's the guy that the Flames really need to help them get out of this rebuild. And he's going to be an anchor for the Flames on that back end. So excited for Carson Karels. I'm so excited for him to be as a member of the Calgary Flames here, because this is a guy that's going to be a ton of fun to watch and a ton of fun to root for. And I think his jersey is going to be one of the best selling jerseys at the new rink when that opens up as well, Robert. So both of us getting to Carson Karels at number 1 on our top 10 prospects. Pretty easy choice for us, Robert.
So where do you rank this group of prospects among other groups of prospects in Flames history? We'll call it over the last, say, 20 years or 25 years since we've really been.
This is the best, because you're talking about a dynamic player in Wittenbach. You're talking about how good Koresny can be as a center. We're comparing him to guys who are top 6 centers in this league. You got a top prospect in Carson Karels who can be an anchor for your back end. We left off 3 dynamic players that people are really high on that are already in the National Hockey League. You know, the ceiling for Hextall and Potter and Stocksalius is up there. I don't remember a list this deep that you are high on this many guys. Like, legitimately, we have 10 guys here that we could projectly see in the National Hockey League in the next 2 seasons, and we wouldn't be stretching for any of these names, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even just, you know, like I've been to like a whole bunch of rookie camps, you know, over the last 10 years. And I would say that was the best collection of talent and speed and skill I've ever seen. And like Craig Conroy has just done such a great job bringing in all of these guys and pretty much changing the way the Flames go about their draft and what they prioritize. You know, all the credit in the world goes to Craig Conroy, Todd Button, and the scouting staff for the work that they've done over the last 3 years. Like, really, really impressive stuff.
You mean you didn't enjoy the Hunter Smiths and Greg Nemus's picks of the world?
Yeah, not really. I'm being honest, not really. The other thing with the,
I was going to say Leland Irving didn't take your fancy there, Leland Irving.
No, not really, not really. Oh my God, those are some brutal drafts. What was Daryl Sutter doing as GM? What was he doing? Was it his goal to sabotage the team?
Well, when you prioritize size, then you just got to get some. You just got to get those guys. You just got to get the Keys and Kanziks of the world on your roster, because they're just big guys.
At least with Treliving, like he did draft Kachuk and Anderson and Mangiapane, and even like I know the Adam Fox didn't play for the Flames. That's still a great pick.
Did he draft Kachuk, or did Kachuk fall in his laps because the Canucks suck?
Well, it's a mix of both. You know, they could have taken somebody else at number 6, so give them credit that they actually made the pick. But I guess the rumor at that time was that the Flames loved Puljujarvi. So, you know, thank God that he got picked ahead of them.
Sheesh. Yeah, swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Nice to see the draft has changed it a little bit here.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes to the prospects, there's going to be 2 incredibly exciting times this year. Actually, we'll go with 3. One will be the World Juniors.
Yep.
This will be the best collection of players who have been drafted by the Flames to play at the World Juniors in their team's history. I mean, like, you take a look at Team Canada. Cole Reschke, there's a legitimate argument that he could be the number 1 center on that team this year, because it's a bunch. It's like him and Coots and Malhotra. Like, there's not like a ton of like high end guys, but like Cole Reschke could be the number 1 center. Carson Karels could be a top pairing defenseman on that team. Then you go over to Team USA and you have Ethan Wittenbach, who I can guarantee will probably be a top line winger. Cullen Potter is probably going to make that team. Jack Hextall has a chance to make that team. And then on Sweden, you got a guy like Theo Stocksilius, who, like I mentioned earlier, he was listed as the number 1 center for Sweden at the World Junior Summer Showcase. You know, we're talking multiple players in high leverage roles for their teams. And there's going to be Tobias Treball for Czechia as well. Like we're talking starting goalies, first line centers, top pairing defensemen, number 1 wingers. Like, this is going to be super, super exciting. And then on top of that, you'll have a bunch of guys who sign out of college: Potter, Reschke, Wittenbach, Karls, you know, as 4 guaranteed guys who are probably going to sign. And then you'll have the draft. So, I mean, if you love prospects and you love tracking, you know, young players within the Flames system, this year is going to be a dream just a dream for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of rough nights with the NHL team this year, but if you want to focus your attention on some of the younger guys, man, there's going to be a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, this is the part where I encourage people to enjoy the journey of the rebuild, because you are going to have some hard nights watching the NHL roster, and you're going to be disheartened when they lose 8-2 in Washington or whatever it might be. But you look at this part of the journey where they're building something in the future. Like, you look 3-4 seasons down the road here, how exciting this roster can be, and it starts with these players, these drafts, putting together these lists, and projecting these guys out. Like, not everyone's going to hit at their full potential, but even to have half these guys hit what we think they're going to hit, it's just an exciting thing to think about and it's exciting to watch. And so this is part of the journey of building a long-term sustainable franchise who's competitive year in and year out. This is what you go through, and this is the downside of it, where you have to watch the NHL team struggle, but you have these exciting prospects to watch. I really encourage people to watch more junior hockey, watch some NCAA, watch these prospects coming up, be familiar with their games, because you're going to be excited for the future. You're going to be entertained by the product that these players are putting on the ice, and it's going to give you a little bit of hope for what's probably going to be a couple seasons more of really down Flames hockey, and trying to watch Sharon Govich flutter pucks on a power play too, or you're going to be watching Michael Backlund struggle to keep up with the NHL game as it gets a little faster in those type of situations. You're going to have those nights in the National Hockey League. You got some exciting prospects coming, and it's very, very exciting for me to watch these guys come through and to project out what this roster is going to be like, Robert. It's exciting to see this much skill and have this much dynamic players in the Flame system. I'm very excited for it. Very, very excited for it. We have another topic here, Robert, we want to talk about, but before we get there, anything else on the prospects that we want to bring up here?
No, that was pretty comprehensive. That was a good deep dive right there. So no, I got really nothing else to add. I mean, I'd mentioned the guys that were just on the outside looking in, the honorable mentions. Like I said, outside of guys like Basha and Harrington, I think once you get past those guys, the drop off is pretty steep. I don't know if a guy like Maceo Phillips is ever going to make the top 10, or Eric Jameson, Jonathan Castagna, like those types of guys. I think they all have the potential to maybe get to the NHL one day, but I just don't think they're in the same category right now as the other guys we talked about. So yeah, I think that we'll call it top 12 is really strong. And then, if you're doing a top 20 list, like 13 through 20 is good. But I just don't think it's got the same upside as the guys that we had mentioned in the top 12 there. But I mean, really, really exciting time to be a Flames fan. It's going to take a few years to get there, but Craig Conroy has poured the foundation, and the key to building a great home is a strong foundation. And Conroy's done just that. And now it's up to the development staff, and it's up to these players themselves to get to the point where we think they can get to. So yeah, it's going to be really fun over the next, we'll call it 2 to 3 years, to see how a lot of these guys develop.
You wrote an interesting article on flamesnation.ca about the fan experience in Canada and about how it's declining slowly. So why don't you set us up for this conversation, Robert, in this article that you wrote here? Because it got a lot of play on social media, a lot of comments on the article by itself. But why don't you set us up for this conversation here about the fan experience in Canada slowly declining here?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked out the article yet, go to flamesnation.ca and read it. And basically the inspiration behind the article was just seeing Sportsnet increase the price of Sportsnet Plus again. This has happened 3 years in a row where, the app was not too long ago. The app was, I think it was like $180 for the year, which is fairly reasonable. And I thought was totally fair for what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
That price has essentially doubled in the last 5 years. Sportsnet Plus is now the most expensive streaming service in all of Canada, which is I found absolutely disgusting. So when I saw that news, and I've been thinking about this for a while, I'm like, there's a whole bunch of things right now about being a fan that's really starting to decline. So I kind of dove into that whole topic. I'm curious to know like where you're at, John, with being a fan in Canada right now, like just the whole experience overall. Compare it to, say, like the mid 2000s or the early 2010s. Like, where do you think it was, and like where do you think it's going? And are you kind of on the same page as me, or do you think I'm kind of over exaggerating a little bit?
No, no. In fact, I'm going to be harsh. I think Sportsnet sucks. I really think that their product has gotten worse every single year that they've been on the air. They have not done anything innovated in this program. They tried the 1 year with George as the host, and then went right back to the old school way of thinking things. You compare it to back when TSN had the NHL rights, and the amount of panel discussions and breaking down of the game, and then you had Hockey Night in Canada separate with Ron McLean, and yes, Don Cherry was a polarizing figure for some, but Coach's Corner, and then you had Behind the Mask with Kelly Rudy. You had a bunch of different programs. You had the East Coast hot, the West Coast, what do they call it? The hot stove there,
the hot stove, yeah.
That, like, they had so many different ways of presenting the game on different platforms that you got on your basic cable package that you were spending in your regular house now. And the product that you got pretty much for the cost of cable was an informative program where they really highlighted the players. They really did a really good job of teaching the game. And I think I'm really familiar with the game of hockey and the ins and outs of it. But even watching those programs and those intermissions, you got a lot out of it. You got a lot of bang for your buck. Where nowadays, Sportsnet is really focused on giving you that Mr. Lube commercial a second time, or the Tim Hortons commercial. Got to shoehorn that in 7 or 8 times in this intermission. You don't get the value anymore of the broadcast. And then you go the on-ice product. Like, the NHL has never been faster. It's never been better. Higher competition. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night. And it's incredible to watch. A lot of young, great talent in this league. And I think Sportsnet does a really bad job of highlighting these players and showing these players and teaching the game and the different rule changes we get every year in and out of the National Hockey League. They're more... And shame on us as consumers for giving them our money and allowing them to think this way, but they really don't care about the product because we keep spending the money. People keep giving them their money that, okay, we can do the same with less, or we can do less with less, and you get less informative intermissions. You get less bang for your buck. There's no post-game show anymore. It's straight to Sportsnet connected. How many times did you watch a Hockey Night in Canada broadcast or a TSN broadcast? Or heck, if you were in the States, an NBC broadcast, there was always a post-game wrap-up with the panel, an interview with a player on the ice. You had those kind of things that would bring you the end of the hockey game. You would have great discussions on what you just saw between Pittsburgh and Washington on the ice, or whoever it was that you were watching to play. You don't get that anymore. It's straight to Sportsnet Connected and how bad the Blue Jays lost that day, or straight to Sportsnet Connected and you don't get live look-ins on other games anymore. They used to be cut off one Hockey Night in Canada game, you'd go to the other one to watch the end of the Habs game or whoever else is playing that night. You don't get those things anymore. So Sportsnet has really taken liberties here with their right holdings and have given you as little as they possibly can while still getting all your money. And because we continually pay that money, they continually find ways to shave it down. And it's a shame that they're taking advantage of their consumers. And it's a shame on us consumers a little bit that we continually give them our money. I don't like the fan experience because it doesn't seem to be a fan experience anymore with Sportsnet. Go back and watch a full broadcast of TSN in the early 2000s and James Duthie hosting those panels and Bob McKenzie giving his insights to the game and so on and so forth. It's such an entirely different experience. It doesn't feel like an experience anymore, Robert, and that's where I stand on Sportsnet. I think it's not good for it, and it doesn't encourage people to tune into the broadcasts. It doesn't encourage people to learn more about the game because you're really not getting any bang for your buck here.
Yeah, no, that's well said, and I agree with basically everything you said there. I mean, Rogers is at the middle of basically this whole discussion. It's ever since they took over the national rights, it has just slowly been declining. I mean, when you go back to like the mid 2000s or early 2010s, just go back and look at the lineup that TSN and CBC had for play-by-play commentators and their color analysts. It was so good. On TSN, whether it was Gord Miller and Chris Cuthbert leading the way on their national broadcasts, and at CBC, it was Jim Houston and Bob Cole and Mark Lee and Rick Ball and like elite of the elite play-by-play commentators. We don't have that anymore. I mean, You have Chris Cuthbert as the number one guy, and he still does a really good job. But then it's a guy like John Bartlett who, does a nice job, but he's not even close to being in the same caliber as the people that I had just talked about. And then, out west, they used to have national guys that did the late night Hockey Night in Canada games. Now they just go to the regional guys. They don't even have a national guy. And then you go to the studio shows, like you had mentioned, that the quality has gone down. The betting segments are out of control. They basically replaced storytelling and analysis with betting, which I get betting. These betting companies, they spend a lot of money on marketing on these sports networks, and quite honestly, they're the lifeblood, and they're basically the reason why a lot of these sports channels exist. So like I understand the importance behind it, but at the same time, it almost feels like it's gone a little far sometimes. Like I remember back in the day, Elliot Friedman used to have a segment on the pregame show on Hockey Night in Canada. I think it was called Inside Hockey. And he would travel to different cities, the week before Saturday night. And he would do these awesome, 5 to 8 minute deep dives into stories in those local markets. Whether, I remember one, he went to Vancouver to talk to the Sedins about their charity work and how they donated $1 million to the BC Children's Hospital. Like, they did that every single week, and it was awesome storytelling. That doesn't exist anymore. And then, away from the actual TV broadcasts, like another thing, I was critical of was just these large media companies are decimating sports media in this country. Bell and Rogers have shut down multiple all sports radio stations. Newspapers only employ probably 1 or 2 sports writers now that actually go to games and write. A lot of these large broadcast corporations, your CBC, CTV, Global, City News, all those types of places, they used to have sports departments with 3 or 4 people that would do like a 30-minute sports show, and they'd send people to local games. They'd send people to the Stamps and the Flames and do stories. Those don't exist anymore. Like, these large companies have really eroded and kind of destroyed sports media in Canada. And like, that's one of like the fun parts of being a fan, is hearing different thoughts and different opinions, and listening to different shows and like all that kind of stuff. Like, you don't have that anymore. You have your podcasts, which is great, but like all sports radio stations are now gone, and those were a lot of important voices in local markets. Like, there's that. And even like the other thing too is just, I find, I talk about storytelling and I talk about fan engagement, and a lot of teams they're so conservative, and they're so tight with who they let their players speak to, and the type of access they give to media companies with their players it's like almost non-existent now. Like with the Flames last year, how many times did we hear a one-on-one interview with a player and a media company? It was basically, well, I mean, it would be like Nazem Kadri playing in his 1,000th game would do a 10-minute interview on Fan 960. Like there are probably 4 or 5 one-on-one interviews between a player and Pat Steinberg, throughout the year, like where they're actually like in studio having like a really like kind of deep, detailed conversation, not like in a scrum or something like that. Eric Francis would get the odd scoop or the odd one-on-one article with a guy who maybe had a contract coming up soon or something like that. That's it. Like, you never hear Flames players on podcasts. You never see them doing long form interviews. You never see them, doing interviews about, how they grew up, or like what's their favorite part of living in the city, or a lot of the charity work they do. Like, you don't see a ton of that stuff. And like, if you're a fan, that's the kind of content you want to see. And the one line I put in the article that I think resonated with a lot of people is just the fact that fans want to cheer for players that they feel like they have a connection with and they have a little bit of a relationship with. And when you gatekeep those players from media and from fans, and you have a red rope around, like Hollywood red carpet, or like a red rope around them, and all that kind of stuff, and you don't allow them to go out into the community and get to know people, there's just becomes this divide between the fans and the players. And it goes from the fans having a connection with the players to now the fans are just watching a millionaire play hockey, and there's no connection there anymore. And just that seems to be going too. Like, there's so many things that are declining our experience as hockey fans. And yeah, just a lot of it has to do with storytelling and media, and the lack of coverage and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'd been thinking about that for a long time, and just seeing Sportsnet once again increase the price and making it more difficult for the average fan to watch their favorite team play, like it just put me over the top. And I'm like, God, like enough is enough. Like someone's got to talk about this. So yeah, like it's just, and then, from a playing perspective, I'm hearing the other day, John Shannon, who's as dialed in as they come when it comes to people in the NHL office, he's saying they're going to move to 36 teams. 36 teams. How the hell are you supposed to win a Stanley Cup when you have 36 teams in the league? Like there's that too. Like there's so much. There's so much that the NHL could do better. And yeah, it's a real shame. And I hope that they can come up with some solutions to kind of get back to connecting with fans a little bit more. Because now it feels like we're nothing but an ATM with the amount of money we're spending on Sportsnet Plus, the amount of money you spend on a ticket to go to the game, and to buy a $17 beer, and to buy an $8 or $10 hot dog. Like it just feels like we're ATMs now rather than fans. And I think there's a different relationship there between a person and a normal like B2C business and a fan and a sporting team. Like I think the relationship's different. I think you need to be treated a little bit differently. So I don't know. That's just a long way of saying that the NHL's got to change things up here, because if they keep going in this direction, they're going to eventually lose a lot of fans, I think.
Yeah, the NHL likes to talk about making this game accessible, and they want to grow the game. And you look in the States and you have all these regional broadcasts. And if you watch any of those those FanDuel network guys down there, there's a ton of really, really good broadcasts in the States. There are, and there's a ton of work going into those guys. And they're growing the game in the States. In Canada, though, it feels like, well, we're Canadian, we'll just tune in no matter what happens, right? Like they're taking advantage of the good nature Canadian hockey fan, and the experience isn't what it should be. Like, let's be honest, you should be better. You should have a good experience. You go watch the NFL and you watch the experience. It's all catered around to the fans. The on-field warm-ups that you watch, or the interviews you get, the access you get in the media, social media from these NFL players, the NHL is nowhere near that. It's all about the gatekeeping that you mentioned there, Robert. And it's not growing the game. It's not catering to anybody other than the high telecoms who like to run these broadcasts and these stations. And it's all about how little they can do, but how much money they can get. Like it just felt so tone deaf, shutting down these radio stations, and then 2 weeks later you're putting an increase on your app. Like it just feels like it just really sends the message that they don't care about the consumer. And so as consumers, we got to kind of find a way to take that back a little bit and find that experience. But the NHL is going to feel the effects of it. The next generation of hockey fans, they want stuff now. They don't want to wait. And that's fine. That's how the world's going to go. But to cater to those fans, you got to make it accessible for them to watch these games now. You got to make it accessible for them to learn these games. You got to make it accessible so the players can be interacted with and things like that. That's how the world is right now. That's how the world's going in the social media era. And so you've got to find a way to make it more accessible for the fans and to make their experience better than it is. Because in Canada, the experience is absolute garbage. It's not to the level that we should have as a consumer, as a customer. It's like going to a restaurant and ordering the same meal for 5 years, but it goes from this double-decker deluxe hamburger to a single patty with a couple of pickles on it. Like that's what I would liken it to, and you're still paying more for that second sandwich rather than getting what you actually should be getting from it and being okay with it. The NHL needs to step in here, and I know they're not going to be able to tell a big telecom what's going on, but what they can do is they can make it so they can't have the monopoly of the broadcast in Canada. Look at what Amazon's done in just that one game a week on their Prime broadcast. It's incredibly different than what Sportsnet brings, and I really find it hard finding someone that doesn't like that broadcast over the Sportsnet broadcast. Or everyone loves going to Amazon and watching this game. They give you the experience that we used to have, and fans like that. If you don't like that broadcast, something's got to be wrong with you, because it's an incredible broadcast, and that should be the expectation in Canada. This is our national pastime. This is what we like to watch. This is what we're known for around the world. It's hockey, and so we got to make it accessible for everybody, and we got to make the experience fun for everybody. Otherwise, you're going to see the decline in watching of the sport and therefore playing of the sport. And it's just going to go downhill from there. The effects of a bad broadcast is more than just less people watching a TV broadcast. It goes to the playing levels, the interest levels in the sport. It's a far more reaching factors and consequences than I think Sportsnet and Rogers is thinking about. Because right now it looks like they're only thinking about their bottom line, and that's a shame.
I love your analogy there of like you going to your favorite restaurant, and then all of a sudden they get new ownership, and they think serving an inferior product at a cheaper price, for them in terms of cost, but charging you the same price or more is the way to go about running a business. And Rogers has done exactly that with their hockey coverage. And the Amazon comparison is fantastic. I mean, with Amazon, you get an awesome pregame show where you get something different, where you kind of get the sights and sounds of the arena during warm-ups, which is super cool.
I love it.
And then you get a panel, and then you get storytelling, and then you get intermissions where they do more storytelling and they interview the GM and do all that kind of stuff. Then they have a post-game show. Like that should be happening for regional broadcasts as well. And then same for national broadcasts on Rogers too. And they do that to a certain extent, but not to the same quality that Amazon does. And even just like things like the picture and the audio on Amazon is substantially better than what you get on Sportsnet right now. It's just frustrating. It just feels like as hockey fans, we're being charged more and more and more in terms of our wallets and our bank accounts to consume an inferior product. And like I will say, like the product on the ice that the NHL is putting on is awesome. Like I love watching hockey today. The skill and the speed, the physicality, like it's awesome hockey, but it's everything surrounding the game right now that has taken a hit. And it's a changing world, it's a changing landscape, and it just feels like the NHL hasn't caught up yet when it comes to that. Like we'll just use the Flames as an example, just because this is a Flames podcast here, but this could be applied to basically every team in the league. But like, don't you want to get your message out there a little bit more? Like I wrote about this in the article. Like a guy like Zach Whitecloud, this is a phenomenal human being. Just look at how good he is with the media. Look how good he is in the community. Look at all the charity work he's been doing. He's played 30 games for the Flames, and he's already a fan favorite. Like if you're the Flames, like, don't you want him like going out and doing interviews and talking to people in the media and showing off his personality and getting him to talk about his love for the city and how much he enjoys being a member of the Flames? Like that's how you build connection with your fan base, between your fan base and your players. Like that's how you do it. And you shouldn't be afraid of the media. Like yes, like you have to be careful if you're a player, like what you say. Like you can't go out and just say absolutely insane things, but like that's not asking a lot of a player. It's just like, okay, just be a normal human being. Like like you just the protection of these players, I think is too much right now. And we've built such a gap between your average fan and a player that now it just feels like these players are multi-millionaires and they're only here to play hockey. Whereas like if you do a better job of storytelling, and you get them out, talking to fans more, and you get them out in the community more, and you do more interviews, and you encourage them to post more on social media about how much they're enjoying being in Calgary, all of a sudden the fans are going to fall in love with these players. Like Whitecloud and a guy like Devin Cooley are fantastic examples of that. Like people love these guys. So, put your players out there more. And if you do that, like it's going to lead to your city enjoying your team more. It's going to lead to more ticket sales. It's going to lead to more merchandise sales. And it's going to lead to just having a better relationship between the fan base, the players, and the organization. Like, I just think it's a no-brainer. And we used to have that. Like, back in the day, like I remember Eric DeHatchik talking on a podcast one time saying in the 1980s and 90s when he was covering the Flames, he could just go into the locker room and just have a one-on-one chat with a guy. But now you have to go through, multiple steps, and you have to go through PR people. And normally whenever you get access to a player now, it's in a scrum with like 8 other people. And like, you just can't tell stories and you can't build relationships by doing that. And I even remember DeHatchik saying, like, I used to go for beers with players. Like I would go and have lunch with players and get to know them and get to know their story and, You know, there are times where I could write a story and I could go, you know, back to their house and meet their family, and like, and when fans read those types of, you know, pieces of content, whether it's an article or video form, you get to know the player, and then all of a sudden you want to cheer for that player more. Like, it's like, it's the hockey broadcast itself. It's how expensive it is. It's cutting off players from the fans and protecting them from media. All those things combined are starting to add up, and it's starting to really become an issue, I think, with hockey coverage in this country. So like, I really hope, you know, team executives and executives at the NHL head office, I really hope that they understand this, and I hope that there's going to start to be a change here, because if they continue in this direction, like they're going to start to suffer. And, you know, Rogers is going to lose like a lot of subscribers, and they're going to lose a lot of TV viewers. And, you know, another thing too, is like Canada, the landscape, not only on the media side, but just demographics in Canada is changing. Like, we have a lot of new Canadians here that you should be introducing to the game, but because it's so expensive and it's so hard to access, you know, like a lot of new Canadians can't even get there, you know, whether it's watching the game or signing up to play. Like, there's a lot of different elements to this conversation that I don't think the NHL's taking as seriously as they should.
If they want to grow the game, they're not doing a very good job of it in Canada. They might be growing in the States and in Sweden or Finland, but in Canada, it is not growing. It is going the other direction. It is concerning, and Sportsnet is at the forefront of that. I miss Eric DeHatchik's coverage. He was awesome. So good. And I miss his hits on the radio as well. He was really good on those as well. Like, he was what hockey reporting and sports reporting should be, where the storytelling that he did, the analysis that he provided, and multiple different levels of doing it. He did it on the radio. He wrote articles for it. He did it on TV on Hockey Night in Canada. He was tremendous at it, and that's what Canada has lost. We've lost all of it, except for a small snippet every now and then on an Amazon broadcast. We've lost it. We don't have it anymore, and it's a shame, because it's going to limit people. You just mentioned there, Robert, all these new Canadians in the country. The next generation of hockey fans, they don't know how to go about getting this information or seeing this information. It's tone deaf when it comes down to it for me, and it's a shame at the national hockey level that these telecoms are getting away with this kind of stuff. And as Canadians and as a long time hockey watcher, I'm very disappointed. And
just to balance out the conversation just a little bit, is just, there's tons of people doing great work. Like, there's no denying that. Like people in media today, like, they're doing the best with the hand that they're dealt right now. You know, like the NHL and its club teams, they do a lot of great work. Like, whether it's like charity work or, you know, like I know like a lot of teams are producing their own documentaries to kind of give fans a little bit behind the scenes looks. Like, that stuff is good. Like, there's still lots of good out there, and there's still talented people out there. It's just, I feel like the quality is slipping a little bit, and a lot of that blame goes on to like the major networks for not prioritizing this, and a lot of blame goes on to the NHL for not stopping this and not doing anything about this. So I do just want to point out that, like, it's not all bad. Like I said, the product itself, the game itself is great. A lot of these teams do amazing work in their communities. Like, a lot of players do amazing work in their communities. I just think when it comes to things like storytelling and building your connection with your fan base and pricing and the quality of broadcasts and stuff like that, like, there's lots of room to improve there. But I do want to say, like, there's still lots of good people and lots of good work happening right now, for sure. It could just be better.
Absolutely, and that is well put by you, Robert. Anything else you want to bring on the podcast? Because like, we could beat this conversation to death till we're blue in the face here, and it's well put by you. And go read that article on flamesnation.ca that Robert put out there. It's well worth the read, and hopefully you can all find a way to watch Flames games this year and have an enjoyable experience, because Sportsnet and Rogers isn't making it easy on us. Anything else you want to bring on the podcast here, Robert? We've gone quite long this week, and we appreciate everyone sticking with us. But anything else you wanted to talk about this week?
No, I think the hour 24 in the middle of July is good enough. I think people are done with us.
If you need to, watch the episode in two parts. I guess it would be the way to go about doing it if you really need to. But without any radio, thank you, Sportsnet. Without any radio, I think people are going to enjoy the conversation. And if you have enjoyed the conversation, please don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us wherever you do your social media. We are there. Robert, your new handle on X is Robert_Munich. Do I have that right?
That is correct.
All right. And I'm Vintage Johnny 84 as well. So go ahead and find us on there and we'll happily chat more flames with you. Appreciate you making us part of your podcast rotation, for helping us grow this show. We appreciate each and every one of you, every download, every listen, every share. Until next week, enjoy your week. Enjoy some more summer. It's still nice and warm. So get out to those pools and enjoy your time with your family. We'll see you next week here on the Red Mile Rundown.